The wind sweeps across the vast Texas plains, morning light glinting on the tall grasses. A lone hawk circles far above, and the scent of smoke lingers from distant campfires. The year is 1836. The land of the Comanche, known to their people as Numanu, stretches endlessly toward the horizon. Families stir in their tipis, the rhythmic clatter of horse hooves marking the day. Children's laughter mingles with the low hum of preparation. Elders speak in quiet tones of treaties signed and broken. A tension hangs in the air, a sense that the world is shifting slowly and irreversibly. Among them, a girl of 9 winters, captured by fate, walks silently beside her adoptive kin. Cynthia Ann Parker, known by her Comanche name. Not so feels the warmth of the sun on her face, yet shadows of longing for a world left behind. Trace her eyes, she is already part of this land, yet carries a memory of another life. Traders and scouts move along the river ford. Their calls carried on the wind, the scent of wet earth and distant cedar mingles with the faint metallic tang of weapons being readied. Every movement is purposeful, each gesture tied to survival and the protection of their people. The village elders gather around the council fire, their voices low but deliberate, recounting raids, alliances, and the ever-looming presence of settlers pressing westwards. The pulse of the plains beats in their stories, each word a warning, each memory a lesson. Horses snort and paw at the soil. Mothers call their children close. Weaving them into blankets of warmth, smoke rises from cooking fires. A sense of communal strength emerges of life intimately connected to the land, its rhythm, and its dangers. In the distance, dark clouds gather over the mesas. The first rumble of thunder echoes. The wind carries whispers of impending conflict, a reminder that the peace of today is fragile, and the future of the Comanche people, of those they shelter, hangs on the choices made in the hours to come. As dusk approaches, golden light spills over the horizon. Shadows stretch long across the prairie. Cynthia pauses at the edge of the camp, her eyes scanning the open plains, a deep breath. A heartbeat of anticipation, for she is poised on the threshold of a story that will define her life and the lives of those who call this land home. Across the plains, the Comanche Confederacy stretches its influence over vast hunting grounds, their mobility and mastery of the horse giving them unparalleled control over trade and territory. Yet beyond the horizon, settlers push westward, staking claims on lands promised by distant treaties. Government agents move along newly surveyed routes, maps in hand, drawing invisible lines over territories that have belonged to the Comanche for generations. Each stroke creating tension between the needs of expansion and the sovereignty of indigenous communities. Trading posts spring up along rivers, offering goods, weapons, and alcohol, weaving a fragile economic web that entices some and angers others, the lure of profit, creating fractures within and between tribes. Missionaries and settlers arrive with intentions cloaked in religion and civilization, pressing communities to abandon old ways, disrupting traditional leadership structures, and adding a moral and ideological pressure to an already fragile balance. Drought grips parts of the southern plains, rivers recede, and herds of buffalo wander farther from the villages, forcing Comanche bands to split and migrate, straining alliances and creating competition for scarce resources. Spanish and later American forts dot the landscape, garrisons, armed and watchful their presence, a constant reminder of external power and military threat altering traditional patterns of travel and hunting. Letters and reports travel slowly along these routes, describing skirmishes, broken promises, and misunderstandings. Each document inflaming fears and preparing minds for confrontation. Neighboring tribes observe these changes with cautious calculation, some seeking alliances with the Comanche, others exploiting rivalries, adding layers of political complexity to an already tense environment. Settlers organize militias to protect homesteads, unaware of the deep networks of communication and intelligence among the Comanche, each side preparing unknowingly to collide with the other. Markets in nearby towns swell with buffalo hides and other trade goods, feeding economic incentives that drive settlers further onto native lands, tying distant economies directly to the encroachment on the plains. Disease travels silently along these trade routes, affecting both indigenous communities and settlers, weakening some bands, while empowering others who remain unaffected, subtly shifting power balances. The Comanche councils convene at central locations, debating whether to negotiate, resist, or relocate the decisions shaped by generations of knowledge, honor, and the pressing realities of survival. Reports from explorers and scouts filter back to capitals often exaggerated or misunderstood, framing the Comanche as obstacles to progress and justifying military expeditions, stoking fear and anger far from the plains themselves. Weather patterns, sudden storms, and shifting seasons further complicate travel, hunting, and communication, turning strategic movements into life-or-death decisions and increasing the stakes of every choice. Families begin storing supplies, reinforcing lodges, and preparing horses, aware that disruption may come swiftly, instilling a quiet urgency that permeates everyday life across villages. Political debates in distant territories revolve around expansion, trade rights, and military funding, while local Comanche leaders weigh each move with an understanding that every treaty and promise carries risk. Buffalo drives become more dangerous as hunting grounds shrink, alliances strain, and bands compete for diminishing resources. The rhythm of the plains itself shaping human choices. Messages carried by runners and mounted scouts reach neighboring bands, relaying intelligence on settler movements, broken treaties, and potential allies or threats, weaving a complex web of foresight and caution. Settlers clear land for farms and towns, altering waterways, cutting timber and fencing pastures, changing the landscape, and creating invisible boundaries that the Comanche must navigate carefully to avoid conflict. Comanche warriors patrol the borders of their territories, observing movements and preparing for both diplomacy and defense, aware that miscalculation could lead to immediate bloodshed. Traders exploit these tensions, offering firearms, ammunition, and alcohol, intensifying rivalries and dependence, subtly fueling future confrontations, while promising short-term gains. Families and kinship groups gather to share stories of past raids and negotiations, teaching the young about honor strategy and the importance of unity, embedding social cohesion as a counterbalance to external pressures. Every path across the plains now carries a story, a rumor, or a warning. The air is charged with anticipation, and the stage is set for confrontation, the invisible lines drawn on maps becoming tangible in the lives of all who inhabit the land. The landscape itself is a silent witness, hills, rivers, and mesas, recording each movement and decision, holding memory of both peace and the fractures that will soon erupt into open conflict. Cynthia Ann Parker moves silently through the tall grasses of the plains, her eyes scanning the horizon, every step measured, carrying the weight of two worlds upon her shoulders. Known among her people as Not So, she embodies the bridge between Comanche tradition and the world she left behind, her heart caught between loyalty to her adoptive family and memories of a life far away. At dawn, she watches hunters prepare their horses, learning the patterns of the land, absorbing lessons that will guide her survival and her understanding of honor within the Comanche bands. Her hands, small but steady, touch the braided hair of younger children, offering reassurance, teaching them silently the values of courage, obedience, and respect for the plains that sustain them. Around the campfires, elders speak in measured tones of history and survival, and Cynthia listens intently, the rhythm of their stories shaping her understanding of leadership, responsibility, and the fragility of peace. The eagle feathers she wears are not merely decoration. They are symbols of kinship achievement and the invisible threads connecting her to the spirits of ancestors and the identity she now carries. She observes the scouts returning from distant mesas, noting their reports, the subtle signs of approaching threats and the tensions that ripple through the band, recognizing that awareness is as critical as courage. At the river crossing, she watches the water flow over stones, learning patience and timing, understanding that the land itself speaks, offering guidance to those willing to pay attention. In moments of quiet, she reflects on the family she lost, the voices of her birth community, mingling with the songs and chants of the Comanche, forging a hybrid identity that gives her strength and insight. She practices her skills with bow and arrow, her movements precise and fluid, each gesture a testament to resilience and the legacy of those who taught her survival in this expansive land. Her laughter sometimes breaks the tension of the camp, reminding those around her that courage is not absence of fear, but the willingness to live fully despite it. During ceremonial gatherings, she participates with reverence, understanding that ritual binds the people to the earth, to each other, and to the stories that have guided them through generations of challenge. Cynthia's eyes often drift to the horizon, where the land meets sky, contemplating the uncertainty ahead. Yet finding determination in the continuity of seasons, the return of the buffalo, and the wisdom carried in every gesture of her people. She carries small tokens of her past, a ribbon, a trinket, a fragment of memory that remind her of her dual existence and inform the choices she must make in moments of crisis. When the elders speak of alliances and disputes, she listens for subtleties, learning the balance of diplomacy, strength, and intuition that will shape her role in the events to come. As the sun sets over the prairie, her silhouette stands tall, a figure of quiet authority embodying the hopes, fears, and resilience of the Comanche people poised to navigate the challenges that history is about to unfold. A distant cloud of dust rises over the western horizon, signaling the approach of strangers whose intentions are unclear but whose presence brings unease to every village. Word reaches the council fire that a group of settlers has crossed into Comanche hunting grounds, claiming land that has been tended and defended for generations, setting hearts on edge. Scouts return with news of small skirmishes, livestock taken, and the fear that these encroachments are only the beginning of a larger, unstoppable tide. Cynthia listens intently as the elders deliberate, their voices low and urgent, debating whether to negotiate retreat or prepare for confrontation, the weight of leadership pressing on the young girl's conscience. Fires are stoked in the Tippis warriors' strap on leather and feathers, and every horse is checked, the air thick with tension, a palpable sense that ordinary life will no longer suffice. The sound of drums echoes across the plains, a summons to readiness, carrying the rhythm of alertness and the warning that inaction could mean loss of land, life, and heritage. Messages arrive from neighboring bands, some warning of potential alliances, others of impending attacks, and the network of communication becomes a map of urgency and fear. Cynthia feels the pulse of the community quicken around her, each movement deliberate, each decision heavy with consequence, as the reality of imminent conflict settles over the camp. Elders call for the young to gather tools, weapons, and knowledge, preparing them for roles they have not yet fully understood, a baptism into responsibility thrust upon them too soon. Smoke from distant fires signals the settlers' progress, and warriors ride toward the edges of territory. Eyes scanning the horizon, muscles taut with anticipation and apprehension. Rumors of betrayal and broken promises travel swiftly, and Cynthia senses that survival will require not only courage, but also discernment, cunning, and loyalty tested by fire. The children are hushed, the women gather supplies, and the community moves as one organism, instinctively responding to the shock waves of intrusion that ripple through every layer of life. As night falls, the first flashes of conflict appear on the far ridges, distant yet undeniable, igniting fear, resolve, and a unity forged in the knowledge that hesitation could prove fatal. Cynthia stands at the center of the camp, heart-pounding eyes fixed on the horizon, where the unknown meets the familiar, knowing that from this moment onward, the plains will never be the same, and the story of her people is about to enter a crucible of action. The first light of dawn spills over the undulating plains, casting long shadows across the grassy ridges, where Comanche warriors have taken position, their eyes scanning the horizon for signs of movement. Riders circle the perimeter, noting the curves of the river and the gullies that could hide approaching forces, the land itself dictating strategy and caution. Settlers and militia appear in the distance, moving with confidence, unaware of the subtle observation points and natural chokeholds that will soon turn the tide. Cynthia rides alongside a veteran warrior, feeling the tension of anticipation, the weight of responsibility pressing on her as she interprets the signals of wind, bird calls, and shifting light. The river bends sharply, creating a natural barrier. Yet one scout misreads the terrain, leading part of the militia into a low-lying marsh, slowing their advance and exposing them to observation. A small skirmish erupts as arrows whistle through the air, startling the militia and forcing them to regroup, while Comanche strategy remains fluid and adaptive. Smoke rises from cooking fires abandoned in haste, signaling movement and confusion, the settlers' formation beginning to unravel under unseen pressures. The warriors exploit every ridge and hillock, leveraging elevation to control sightlines, while the militia struggles to coordinate across the uneven terrain, unaware of the pitfalls beneath their hooves. Cynthia notes a faltering group caught between two hills, signaling the warriors to encircle gently, a lesson in restraint, precision, and timing. An elder advises a tactical pause, reading the patterns of movement, knowing that patience and understanding of the land are more powerful than brute force at this stage. The militia attempts to advance through a narrow pass, only to find it obstructed by brush and hidden ditches. Their march slowed. Confidence shaken, giving Comanche leadership a critical window to respond. A miscommunication among the settlers' ranks causes a flanking attempt to falter, exposing a weakness that the Comanche exploit with swift, controlled pressure rather than open confrontation. Cynthia observes young warriors adapting quickly, shifting positions fluidly across hills and valleys, their small movements dictating the flow of the larger engagement. The first shots are fired, a signal of escalation echoing across the plains, yet neither side fully understands the consequences of this initial exchange. A narrow creek becomes a pivot point, its shallow crossing both a trap and a corridor. Its presence unnoticed until critical moments force choices that will alter the engagement. Mist rises from the morning frost, hiding movements, adding confusion, and offering opportunities for sudden advantage, which the Comanche sees with practiced patience. Settlers attempt to consolidate in a small clearing, but the uneven terrain and scattered cover leave them exposed the rhythm of their march, disrupted by natural obstacles. Cynthia notices a flanking group delayed by misjudged distance, a subtle error that could have escalated into chaos, if not corrected by rapid communication. A messenger runs between positions, delivering instructions, the human network as vital as the terrain in shaping outcomes and preventing disaster. Arrows and small skirmishes push the militia back toward the river, bend the natural landscape, forcing retreat and recalibration, demonstrating the decisive influence of geography. An unguarded hillock offers an opportunity quickly recognized and taken by Comanche scouts, tipping local momentum in their favor without direct confrontation. Cynthia reflects on the balance of observation, timing, and patience, understanding that leadership is as much about foresight as action in moments of crisis. The militia regroups awkwardly, losing cohesion, while the Comanche maintain control of critical vantage points, their understanding of the land turning small errors into strategic advantage. Wind shifts carrying sound and scent across the battlefield, and leaders adjust instantly, exploiting new information and demonstrating flexibility shaped by intimate knowledge of the environment. A sudden cloudburst begins softening the earth, muddling tracks and forcing both sides to rethink movement. The terrain itself asserts authority over the unfolding events. Cynthia guides younger warriors through marshy stretches, ensuring safety while maintaining strategic positioning, the human and natural elements intertwined in decision-making. As the sun rises higher, clarity emerges. The first encounter ends not in slaughter, but in realization, the lessons of terrain, timing, and observation, engraved in every participant, setting the stage for the next phase of the struggle. Official reports from the fort describe a cautious engagement, noting minimal resistance and framing the settlers' actions as orderly and justified, presenting events in precise, measured language. By contrast, oral accounts from the Comanche recount the same morning as a sudden intrusion, chaos among the camp, and the courage of young warriors who intercepted the settlers unexpectedly. A letter from a government clerk emphasizes dates, numbers, and territorial claims, detailing troop movements and logistical challenges with bureaucratic clarity, yet omitting the fear and confusion felt by those on the ground. Cynthia remembers a different sequence. Vivid and personal, the smoke rising from abandoned fires, the scent of disturbed earth, the whispers of elders warning of danger, each memory carrying emotion that official documents cannot capture. The administrative report mentions skirmishes, but focuses on minor incidents, avoiding acknowledgement of the cultural and spiritual significance of the Comanche's defensive actions. Elders' oral testimony highlights strategy, intuition, and subtle communication between bands, emphasizing decisions guided by ancestral knowledge and the pulse of the land. A journal kept by a trader provides a mixture of observation and opinion, noting both fear and fascination, capturing the uncertainty of the frontier with more nuance than the sterile official narrative. Government dispatches stress compliance, law, and order, framing the Comanche as obstacles to progress, whereas transmitted stories emphasize honor, responsibility, and the stakes of defending sacred ground. Conflicting times and locations appear. The clerk's log marks the skirmish at dawn, yet witnesses recall the first arrows flying while the sun was still low, suggesting discrepancies in perception and record. Cynthia recounts how her movements and choices intersected with the elders' commands, detailing moments absent from any written account, illustrating the limitations of administrative precision. The oral record captures the emotional intensity of families huddled in tipis, the children frightened mothers directing preparation. A layer of lived reality invisible in formal reports. Comparing versions reveals small but critical differences. The number of warriors, the order of maneuvers, the immediacy of danger. Each divergence offering insight into perspective bias and cultural framing. Through the juxtaposition, a fuller picture emerges. Bureaucracy documents, legality journals, capture observation oral tradition, preserves meaning. And together, they reflect the complexity of memory, authority, and survival. By evening, the evidence of contradiction itself becomes a lesson. History is not a single narrative, but a convergence of experiences, choices, and interpretations, each lens shaping understanding and guiding future decisions. Morning breaks with a tense hush over the camp warriors mounting their horse grips, tightening on reins, eyes scanning every movement across the plains. Cynthia moves among the young fighters, offering guidance, her voice calm yet firm, carrying the weight of both responsibility and fear that pulses through the group. Smoke from distant skirmishes drifts across the horizon, mingling with the scent of fresh earth and dust, signaling that the conflict is no longer confined to observation, but creeping closer. Families huddle together, children clinging to mothers, elders murmuring prayers and counsel, the rhythm of daily life, punctuated by the rising tension. A messenger arrives, breathless, reporting that settlers are regrouping near the river crossing, forcing leaders to make decisions in moments measured by urgency and instinct. Cynthia watches a young boy falter with his bow, correcting his posture with patience, a reminder that courage is nurtured, not assumed in times of crisis. The elders convene briefly, their shadows long in the morning sun, debating maneuvers that balance aggression with protection of families and resources. Women prepare food and supplies, their movements efficient, yet tense, aware that every choice could have consequences far beyond the camp. A sudden shout rises from the ridge, signaling that a scouting party has encountered settlers. Hearts pound, muscles tense, and the rhythm of the plains is interrupted by rapid decision-making. The first volley of arrows arcs through the sky, stirring dust and panic, yet warriors maintain discipline. Weaving between cover, their motions both deliberate and instinctive. Cynthia moves alongside a small group, calming fear, reinforcing focus, her presence a symbol of both leadership and shared vulnerability. Smoke from cooking fires mingles with dust from hoofbeats, creating a visual tapestry of chaos and resilience, illustrating the duality of survival and community. A mother shields her children behind a mound, whispering songs taught by elders, grounding them in tradition, even as danger encroaches. Riders on distant ridges signal movements, the silent language of gestures and flags coordinating actions across the uneven terrain, an orchestration of human and environmental interaction. The sun climbs higher, heat intensifying sweat and dust coating faces, yet focus never wavers. Tension is both physical and psychological, shaping each action. Cynthia observes a scout slip and fall, quickly helped up, a reminder that even small mistakes ripple through strategy, affecting morale and timing. Families watch from tipis, and behind cover, their anxiety mirrored in every glance, every whispered conversation, the weight of potential loss pressing upon all. A young warrior falters under pressure, eyes wide, and Cynthia steps in to guide him, balancing instruction with encouragement, exemplifying leadership through presence. The distant river reflects sunlight, a glimmer of hope, and a potential route for retreat or advancement, each side weighing choices with care and urgency. Elders offer quiet counsel, reminding warriors that honor and survival are intertwined. Decisions are never simple, and every action resonates beyond the immediate moment. Dust rises from shifting formations, the cadence of hooves and shouted commands, creating a symphony of conflict, tension, and controlled chaos. Evening approaches, shadows lengthen across the plains, and the camp holds its collective breath, knowing that the first day of escalation has reshaped their reality and tested their resolve. Cynthia pauses at the edge of the ridge, looking across the land she calls home, feeling the weight of lives in motion, understanding that the choices made in these hours will echo long after the immediate danger has passed. Dawn breaks over the plains, the first light illuminating warriors poised at ridges, eyes fixed on the advancing settlers, every muscle tense with anticipation. Cynthia rides at the front of her group, signaling movements, her heartbeat synchronized with the rhythm of the land, knowing there is no turning back. Arrows whistle through the morning air, striking trees and ground near the enemy, initiating a clash that will define the control of the territory. Militia leaders shout orders, attempting to regroup amidst confusion, but the terrain favors the defenders, each ridge and hollow turning into a strategic advantage. The first skirmishes erupt in earnest, dust and smoke swirling, as warriors and settlers collide, movement, rapid and precise chaos tempered by instinct and training. Cynthia moves through the fray, guiding young fighters, her voice carrying both command and reassurance, embodying courage under pressure. A sudden flanking maneuver by the settlers threatens a critical position, but Comanche scouts intercept, turning the tide with swift, decisive action. The river crossing becomes a focal point, water churned by hooves and feet, mud and spray mixing with the cries of combatants, creating a living obstacle. Families watch from cover, the fear and hope in their eyes mirroring the intensity on the battlefield. Every life intertwined with the unfolding struggle. Smoke rises from overturned wagons and abandoned supplies, evidence of disruption marking the moment when retreat is no longer an option. A volley of arrows hits the ground near a settler contingent, forcing them to scatter and lose cohesion, the momentum irrevocably shifting toward the Comanche. Cynthia signals a charge, warriors moving as one. Flowing over ridges and through gullies, a wave of precision and intent that cannot be halted. The sun climbs, heat and dust combining to sap energy. Yet neither side falters, the urgency of survival pushing muscles, minds, and spirits to their limit. A young warrior trips and falls quickly, assisted by a companion, a brief reminder of vulnerability, yet the cohesion of the group keeps the action relentless. Shouts and cries echo across the plains, blending with the pounding of hooves and the crack of weapons, a symphony of conflict and decisive movement. An exposed hillock becomes the center of a pivotal clash, its control determining access to strategic vantage points, every action carrying amplified consequences. Cynthia maneuvers a group to secure the ridge, blocking the militia's advance, a maneuver informed by instinct, experience, and the intimate knowledge of the land. The clash intensifies as both sides push-pull and reposition the battlefield, a living entity responding to every decision and misstep. Smoke from fires, dust from movement, and cries of combatants mingle in the air, creating a sensory overload that demands focus and courage from all participants. A flanking attempt by settlers is met with coordinated resistance arrows and maneuvers, forcing retreat momentum, swinging irreversibly. Cynthia observes a settler officer fall, signaling a turning point, a moment that will be recounted in reports, journals, and oral histories for generations. The plains echo with the culmination of actions, decisions made in split seconds, cascading into irreversible outcomes. The trajectory of the conflict fixed by the choices of this day. As evening descends, the battlefield quiets, the dust settles, and survivors survey the aftermath, understanding that the point of no return has been crossed. Cynthia stands at the ridge, eyes over the plains, absorbing the cost, the courage, and the permanence of the events, knowing the history of her people has been irrevocably shaped in these hours. The dust of the plains settles, revealing a landscape marked by disruption, with trails of movement and overturned earth tracing the first consequences of the clash. Villagers begin to assess the damage to their homes and supplies, realizing that survival will require swift adaptation and renewed cooperation. Territorial lines once assumed secure are now contested maps, rewritten in the minds of both Comanche and settlers, signaling a shift in local power dynamics. Scout reports indicate that some neighboring bands have shifted allegiances, aligning with those they perceive as strongest, altering long-standing political relationships. Families relocate temporarily to safer areas, carrying livestock, tools, and memories of the conflict, their movements redrawing the social and physical map of the region. Leaders convene councils to reinterpret treaties, alliances, and obligations, recalibrating strategies for defense and negotiation in the uncertain months ahead. Food stores and hunting grounds have been disrupted, forcing bands to adjust migration patterns and resource use to ensure survival through the next season. News of the encounter spreads to distant settlements and forts, influencing policy decisions and prompting military readiness in areas previously considered stable. Elders share the stories of bravery and loss with the younger generation, embedding lessons in strategy, vigilance, and communal responsibility that will endure beyond immediate survival. Trade networks are temporarily disrupted, forcing improvisation in acquiring essential goods, yet also revealing new opportunities for alliances and resource exchange. Cultural rituals resume with added solemnity, reflecting on the lives lost, the resilience displayed, and the necessity of unity to withstand external pressures. Displaced families and warriors return to key locations, cautiously recognizing that the memory of the encounter will guide both defense and diplomacy in the coming years. The topography itself becomes part of the narrative, with ridges, river bends, and hidden passes recorded as strategic points for future planning and teaching. Children learn the consequences of conflict through observation, growing in awareness of both human agency and the unpredictability of natural and political forces. By the end of the season, patterns of movement, settlement, and negotiation have shifted, producing a new map in which survival, influence, and alliances are redefined. Cynthia surveys the plains from a familiar ridge, seeing not just the scars of battle, but the resilience of her people, understanding that the struggle has reshaped lives' power and the very landscape they inhabit. The sun rises gently over the plains, casting golden light on the tipis and lodges that still stand, each structure a testament to endurance and memory. Elders gather at the council fire, recounting the events that reshaped the land, their voices carrying lessons of courage, loss, and the resilience of their people. Cynthia walks among the children, teaching them the songs and stories of their ancestors, ensuring that the memory of the past is preserved for generations to come. Annual ceremonies are performed with reverence, marking the cycles of seasons, honoring those who fell and reaffirming the bonds between the living, the land, and the spirits. Rivers, ridges, and mesas are called by their traditional names, once again endonyms, restoring identity and asserting the presence of the Comanche on a landscape contested and transformed. Families share meals and stories, weaving the past into the present, reflecting on victories, losses, and the daily acts of survival that sustain culture and community. Artifacts, tools, and ceremonial objects are handled with care, each item a symbol of history, memory, and the connection between generations across time. Historians and oral storytellers note discrepancies between documents and lived experience, understanding that the convergence of narrative, ritual, and testimony forms a deeper comprehension of the past. Young warriors listen to the tales of bravery, learning that leadership requires courage, empathy, and respect for both the land and its people. The plains hold echoes of footsteps and hoofbeats of songs and prayers, marking the continuity of life. Even after turmoil, a landscape alive with memory and significance. Cynthia reflects on her journey, the duality of her identity, and the enduring strength found in community, realizing that personal and collective legacy are intertwined on these lands. As dusk settles, shadows stretch long across the prairie, and the voices of the Comanche rise in chant and song, carrying forward lessons, remembrance, and hope, ensuring that history is not forgotten, but lived in each act of culture and continuity.